Roger Federer's accidental disclosure about Alex Eala has shaken the tennis world. The greatest racket player in history just uttered something he was never supposed to say out loud. What had begun as a normal meeting became the most dramatic surprise of the season. One stupid moment and one mistake broke the silence surrounding a romance that no journalist knew existed. The entire sport is now demanding an answer. What has Federer been hiding about this young Filipino star? It was an ad hoc confession. The results were catastrophic. It seemed like a harmless scene. A prominent Swiss sports network welcomed Roger Federer to what appeared to be another standard retrospective, in which he discussed his remarkable career, looked at modern tennis and music, and honored his legacy as a retiree. There was no sign that the conversation might take a dangerous turn. Federer seemed relaxed, even carefree. The interviewer started off with the typical emotion. Wimbledon victories, exciting Nadal matchups, and the heartfelt farewell at the Lever Cup. It was only fitting for a champion who had already said goodbye to professional competition. The atmosphere was one of safety, familiarity, and warmth. Then the pivot came into view. "You've always had an eye for emerging talent, Roger," the interviewer remarked nonchalantly. "Who in women's tennis fascinates you right now?" Federer had politely complimented obvious names in several responses to this seemingly harmless question. Fiat, Gal, and Sabalina. Generic enough to avoid controversy and vague enough to generate attention without making headlines. But this time, his expression was different. Federer hesitated, but it wasn't the cool-headed pause of a cautious media representative. This was unique, sincere, and conflicted, as though he was pondering whether to open a door that he had purposely left closed. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his jaw tensed. Anyone paying careful attention would have been able to see the internal conflict occurring in real time. He started, "Someone is there," but he stopped himself. The interviewer leaned nearer, sensing blood in the water. The instinct of a professional took over. This was no longer music. Specified area. "For more than 3 years, I have been keeping an eye on a certain athlete. Music. A person most people haven't yet talked about. Someone with whom I have collaborated behind the scenes." The room's temperature suddenly changed. With his name hanging in the air like a trial confession, he said, "Alex Eala. She has received one-on-one tutoring, technical advice, match observation, and links to my former coaches for me. I haven't done anything for anyone outside of my own organization." The interviewer's expression betrayed complete incredulity. This was unknown to the general population. The tennis media had not reported any romance between the Swiss maestro and the young Filipino star. Nothing, no training sessions disclosed, no social media hints. Federer recognized music right away. What he had done. A spark of regret, or perhaps liberation, appeared on his face. The secret was out. There was no way to walk it back. He laughed hesitantly, but it didn't reduce the effect of what he had just spoken. "I should probably have refrained from saying that. It's too late." In less than 17 minutes, the video became viral across all tennis platforms. Twitter erupted. Instagram became really popular. Reddit threads go viral. The tennis community demanded an explanation. Reporters hurried to verify information. Eala's name, which had previously only been known to dedicated supporters of lower-tier competitions, unexpectedly took center stage in global sports headlines. Why would Roger Federer, the most well-known figure in the sport, secretly invest in an unranked Filipino player? What did he see that no one else did? And why the secrecy? The inadvertent admission put the tennis world's assumptions about Federer's retirement activities and Eala's improbable rise to prominence in jeopardy. But nobody knew this yet. The connection between music Federer and Eala was not accidental. More profound than expertise is the real cause. When the complete truth was revealed, music lovers' preconceptions about the largest sports figure would be questioned. The interview didn't stop with that startling discovery. Perhaps because he thought he had already gone too far, Federer decided to go into further detail, disclosing a mentoring that no one knew about. Federer said, "When I first saw Alex at the 2022 US Open Juniors, His tone changed from regretful to almost protective. Both skill and mental architecture. The way she generated points made me think of players from a different era. Clever, patient, and lethal when the opportunity presented itself. After watching the video of her match, he discussed how he could connect with her through mutual ties, music, and technical remarks. From occasional observations, regular video analysis sessions evolved. Federer would examine her footwork, serve mechanics, and capacity for tactical decision-making under pressure. He had employed the same forensic technique for his own game throughout his career. I connected her with Pierre Paganini, my fitness teacher. Federer mentioned the man who had continued to compete well into his 40s. I introduced her to Severin Luthi, who coached me for 20 years. I even arranged for her to practice behind closed doors for 2 weeks at my academy in Switzerland last summer. No media, no announcements. The revelations kept coming in. Private court appearances, dietary recommendations, mentoring for mental performance and assistance with equipment funding. Federer had successfully created a shadow growth program around Eala, utilizing his whole professional network to accelerate her development while keeping the arrangement a secret. Why her? As the interviewer played music, the question echoed through the brains of millions of viewers. Federer's answer was brief and straightforward. Because everyone ignores her. There is no tennis infrastructure in her own nation. She does not have access to the funding that other hopefuls do. She is fighting against a system that gives preference to tennis players from developed nations. I identified myself in that conflict. Not the wealthy champion that everyone remembers, but the young athlete who needed someone to believe in him before everyone else did. That comparison stunned onlookers. Given that he was born in Switzerland, had access to excellent training, and was supported by a powerful federation, Federer is analogous to a Filipino athlete vying for recognition from an archipelago nation with minimal tennis tradition. The comparison was immediately attacked for being disconnected from reality and tone-deaf. But Federer went all out. Talent alone never guaranteed anything in my line of work. I was successful because people invested money in me before the results justified it. Tony Rose saw potential in me even when I lacked self-control and was emotional. Peter Carter believed in me even while I was losing junior matches. The same faith should be extended to Alex. Then he used music to make a prediction that completely changed the world of professional tennis. In 3 years, she will be in the top 30. In 5, she will make it to a Grand Slam quarterfinal. I am basing my reputation on that evaluation. Given that they came from perhaps the greatest musician in history, those remarks carried terrible musical weight. Federer rarely publicly predicted certain athletes, but his backing may open doors. It may take years to naturally acquire media attention, sponsorship attention, and wild card entrants. But it also made Alex Eala a prime target. Expectations that had never existed before now loomed like storm clouds. For every competition, Federer's forecast would serve as the standard. Every setback would raise questions about whether or not his judgment had finally failed him. Social media saw the rapid emergence of tribal camps. Supporters complimented Federer's willingness to use his influence to help an underdog cause and applauded his generosity. His critics accused him of putting Alice under unwarranted pressure and possibly stunting her development by placing her in unsuitable circumstances. Tennis insiders were confused. Agents were desperately attempting to ascertain how this link had been concealed for so long. Rivals questioned whether Federer had given similar secret help to others or if Eala represented something especially seductive. Sitting in the midst of this hurricane, Alex Eala herself was about to discover that her personal journey had just tragically and irreversibly gone public. Federer's confession raised an important issue that no one could resolve. That would be Alex Eala. And why did this teenager from Manila convince tennis royalty to put music in danger? His legacy has been kept with great care. Alexandra Montgo Aya was not born with a tennis advantage. There is no family dynasty, no generational wealth supporting private businesses, and no federation infrastructure guaranteeing access to global competition. She emerged from circumstances that, based on statistics, ought to have prevented her from ever endangering the significance of professional tennis. Eala was born in May Music, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines, a nation where basketball is the main source of musical resources and cultural attention. Tennis was an afterthought, a hobby for privileged families with country club memberships, rather than a practical path to athletic glory. The Philippines has never produced a player ranked in the top 50 or a Grand Slam singles champion in the modern era. Simply put, there was no infrastructure. However, for some reason, this girl from Manila began outperforming junior competitors. At the age of 14, she made the decision to relocate to Spain in order to join the Rafa Nadal Academy, which necessitated financial sacrifices that most families could not have imagined. Her parents, who were themselves athletes, recognized that she had unrealized potential that required further development beyond what their country could provide. It was a huge financial commitment. There was still very little likelihood of success in the workplace. Eala swiftly defended their convictions. In 2020, she took home the Australian Open Girls Doubles Championship. Next is the 2021 French Open Girls Doubles Championship. In 2022, she became the first Filipino to win the Girls Singles Championship at the US Open. They weren't flukes. These were intentional demolitions of allegedly superior competitors. But in the business, junior achievement rarely translates into dominance. Throughout tennis history, there are many junior champions who vanished into oblivion after encountering the hard realities of the major tour. It requires varying degrees of physically, mental effort, and tactical expertise. Eala knew this better than most. She has seen gifted musicians perform spectacularly in adult competitions before being destroyed by pressure or exposing technical flaws. She knew that her junior accomplishments would be meaningless without a seamless transfer. At that time, Federer's engagement became revolutionary. After Federer's admission, unidentified sources say he did more than just provide general support. He provided forensic analysis of her game's shortcomings, the specific defects that would prevent her from competing professionally. Her serve was effective against juniors, but it lacked the pace and placement necessary to defeat WTA opponents. Her agility needed to be developed to handle the angles that professional players would present, even though her music was superb. She was competitive, but in order to survive the psychological struggle that awaited her, she had to harden her mental strategy. Federer's network meticulously fixed every error. Paganini changed her workout routine to improve her explosive strength without sacrificing the flexibility required for her defensive abilities. Luthi rearranged her practice routines to emphasize situational pattern discovery rather than monotonous repetition.